There is a boy standing at the edge of a cliff. He has never been this high before. Below him the sea, the whole Aegean, blue and enormous, stretching to the edge of everything he has ever known. Above him the sun, closer than it has any right to be, warmer than anything that comes from the ground. Behind him, his father, who built the things on his back, who warned him, carefully, with the right words in the right order, about exactly this moment. The boy looks up, not down, up. And here is the thing no one ever tells you about this story. He wasn't being reckless. He wasn't being arrogant. He was doing the only thing he had ever been taught to do, by the only person who had ever taught him anything. His name was Icarus. And this is not the story you think you know. Before Crete, before the labyrinth, before Minos, before the wings, there was Athens. And in Athens, there was a man named Daedalus. Athens ran on talent, the way other cities ran on grain or gold. What you could make, what you could build, what you could conceive that no one else had conceived, that was the currency. That was how you were measured. Daedalus stood at the top. He built things that hadn't existed before. Sculptures so precise, so present, so alive that people told stories about them moving on their own, having to be chained to their pedestals at night so they wouldn't disappear. He designed bathhouses, dance floors, tools that other craftsmen used for generations without ever thinking to ask who had first thought of them. He was the standard, and he knew it. His sister brought him her son. The boy's name was Perdix, 12 years old. He started the way apprentices start watching, carrying, sweeping, learning which tools were for what. And then he started to see. He was walking by the sea one day and picked up the spine of a large fish, ran his thumb along the teeth, went back to the workshop and cut teeth into a strip of iron. The saw, first one ever made. He took 2 iron rods, connected them at a pivot, pressed one end into the earth, moved the other in an arc. A perfect circle. The compass, first one ever made. Ovid uses one word for how Daedalus looked at this. Aemulus. Rival, the one who would surpass you. Daedalus looked at a 12-year-old child and saw the person who would one day be better than him. He could not look away. He could not stop looking. There is a temple at the top of the Acropolis. It belongs to Minerva, goddess of craft, of wisdom, of the things human hands can make when working at their edge. It is a high place. Daedalus took Perdix there. Perdix fell from that height. Daedalus spread the story. It was an accident. Minerva was watching. She caught the boy mid-fall, changed him into a bird, a partridge. The boy did not die. But here is what that bird became. A creature that does not nest in high places, that lives close to the ground, in hedgerows, in low scrub, in the space between the earth and everything above it. It does not go up. Remember that. Athens found out. The Areopagus, the High Court, found him guilty. He fled, crossed the water, arrived in Crete. He brought his talent, his name, and the thing he had done on that high place unnamed, unexamined, packed without declaration, carried across the water like everything we carry when we've decided we're not carrying it. In Crete. Minos had problems only Daedalus could solve. He built a hollow cow for the queen's obsession. He built the labyrinth for what was born from it, a maze so perfect, so ruthlessly disorienting. that no one who entered without guidance could find their way out. It was his greatest work. When it was finished, Minos looked at the man who knew every secret of that structure and locked him inside it, along with his son. The boy had grown up watching his father work, had learned to read the way Daedalus moved through a problem, always forward, always through, never back, had never been told what happened in Athens, did not know what his father was capable of. His name was Icarus, and the only way out was up. There is a specific kind of misery that belongs to brilliant people in small spaces. Not the misery of suffering, the misery of capacity, of knowing exactly what your hands can do and having nowhere to do it. Daedalus had been in Crete long enough to hate it in the way you hate a place that has become your life without your permission. He missed Patria, home, the ground you came from. Minos controlled the sea, the land, every passage off the island. Daedalus stood in his prison and looked up. Though Minos blocks escape by sea and land, the sky is surely open to us. Not poetry, engineering. He looked at the sky the way he looked at every problem, as a question waiting for the right mind, and went to work. He started with feathers, watched the birds, studied the overlap, the way smaller feathers nested against larger ones, the way the whole structure moved as one thing. Smallest first, then longer still, thread at the middle, beeswax at the base, bent into the curve of a living wing. He made two, and while he worked, Icarus stood beside him. This is the detail almost no one tells. Not that Icarus disobeyed, not that Icarus ignored the warning. That Icarus was there, in the room, watching his father build the thing that would kill him with no idea that was what he was watching. He blew at the loose feathers and laughed when they scattered. He pressed his thumb into the beeswax and left small prints in it. Ovid writes it without drama. He did not realize that he was handling things that would endanger him. The boy was playing. The father was building. The same object, the same room, two completely different experiences of what was happening. When the wings were finished, he strapped them onto his son. Daedalus wept while he did it. Not after, while. His hands, the same hands that built the labyrinth, that threw a child off a high place in Athens, were shaking. He kissed his son, then warned him, "Fly too low, the sea spray will weigh down the feathers. You'll go into the water. Fly too high, the sun will soften the wax. The wings will come apart in the air. Travel between the extremes. Take the course I show you." Exactly the right words, in exactly the right order. And here is the thing about right words from the wrong example. Icarus had watched his father his entire life, watched him move through problems that would stop other men, turn them over, take them apart, find the angle no one else saw, watched him make the impossible ordinary. What he had never watched him do not once, not in any situation, was stop. For Daedalus, stopping was never the answer. It was what happened to people without the right mind, the right hands, the right capacity to find another way through. You cannot warn someone away from something you have spent their entire life teaching them to move toward. The words were right. The man saying them had never once lived by them. And Icarus had been watching. Daedalus leapt first, rose, adjusted, found the balance, looked back, showed Icarus the angle. Follow me, stay close. Below them, Crete fell away. The labyrinth, his greatest work. His prison shrank to a mark. Then nothing. They flew over Samos, Delos, Paros. On the ground below, a fisherman looked up, a shepherd looked up, a farmer looked up. No word for what they were seeing. In that world, only gods moved through the sky. So that's what they decided it was. One man fleeing a murder conviction. One boy wearing wings he'd helped make without knowing what they were for. The people below looked up and saw gods. That is how it looks from a distance. That is how it almost always looks from a distance. Daedalus flew ahead. Icarus flew behind. The gap between them exactly right to look like guidance. Exactly right to look like safety. Not enough to be either. For a while, it worked. Daedalus ahead. Icarus behind. The sea far below. The sun closer than it had ever been. Icarus held the line. Watched his father's wings. Matched the angle. Stayed between the two. Invisible limits. The way you stay between walls in a corridor you can't see the end of. He was doing it. And then, something happened that no warning had prepared him for. Not the sun, not the wax, not the sea. Something that happened inside him first. The feeling, not the mechanics, the wing angle, the calibration, the engineering, the feeling of the air moving through him instead of around him, the horizon the same in every direction, the ground, with all its walls, its kings, its rules so far below it had stopped being real. Ovid does not say he was arrogant. He uses the word chaudere, joy, not pride, not defiance. Joy, and then deserit ducem. He left his guide. Not in anger, not in rebellion. The way you leave someone behind when you are moving faster than you realized and don't know yet that you've gone too far. No one had ever shown him what too far felt like from the inside. No one had modeled the moment of turning back. Not because they didn't love him. Because the only person who had ever taught him had built his entire identity around the belief that there was always a way through, never a reason to turn around. You inherit more than blood. You inherit the shape of how someone moves through the world. The threshold they treat as normal. The distance they think of as safe. Icarus flew higher because higher felt like more of the thing that had just for the first time in his life felt like freedom. He didn't know where the edge was. He had never been shown. The sun did not announce itself. Thresholds never do. One moment the wax was holding. The next, the feathers at the outer edge began to loosen. One, then several. Icarus moved his arms the way his father showed him. The wings did not respond. He moved them again. Nothing. He looked at his hands. Where there had been wings, there were arms. Just arms. A boy in the middle of the sky with nothing underneath him and no time to understand what was happening. He called for his father. Opened his mouth. Father. Ovid writes it this way. Stay with exactly how he writes it. Even as his mouth was crying his father's name, it vanished into the dark blue sea. The word, the name, the only thing left to say, swallowed by the water before it reached the air where Daedalus was flying. He did not hear it. Daedalus was ahead, flying the line, holding the course, doing exactly what he had told his son to do. He did not hear the word. He did not know, not yet, that the thing behind him had changed. The sea closed. The Icarian Sea, named for what it had taken, not for what Icarus had done, not for who he was, for where he fell. That is how the world remembers, by the location of the loss. not the life that preceded it. Daedalus called his name. Something in the air, a shift, an absence made him look back. Icarus was not there. Icarus, where are you? Silence. Icarus. He looked down, feathers on the water. The specific feathers he had sorted, layered, sealed with wax, bent into the shape of flight, while his son stood beside him and laughed. Floating, pater, said I am non pater, father, but now no longer a father, not the grieving father, not the father who lost his son, the father who was no longer a father, the identity, the word, the thing he had become when Icarus was born. Gone with him. He cursed his hands. Not Minos, not the sea, not the sun. His hands. The hands that built the labyrinth, that made sculptures that seemed to breathe, that wept while fastening wings to his son's shoulders. He cursed his art, because it was the only place left to put it. Daedalus did not build bad wings. He built perfect wings, wings that carried whoever wore them as far as they were willing to go. The problem was never the wings. The problem was what the wings could not carry, the knowledge of when to turn back. That knowledge is not in the feathers. It is not in the wax. It lives in a person built over years, built by watching someone you trust choose the moment to stop and seeing that stopping is survivable. Icarus had never seen that, not from the only person who had ever shown him how to move through the world. Before Daedalus found the body, before he reached the island, before he named it, before he dug, something was already there, waiting, on a branch above the place where the current would bring his son. He carried the body to shore. Not quickly, not efficiently, the way you carry something you are not ready to put down. He found the island not by choice. The current had decided this was far enough. He laid the body on the ground. He began to dig. One man, a nameless island, burying the thing he had made that had unmade him. He gave the island a name, Icaria. The only monument left a name, the one thing that costs nothing and outlasts everything your hands can build. He dug, and while he dug, from the branches of an oak above him, a sound, a partridge, sitting in the tree, watching him work, watching him bury his son, clapping its wings, not distressed, not warning, something closer to satisfaction. Ovid stops the story, steps outside it, turns directly to the reader and asks, "Know you the cause? Do you know why this bird is here? Do you know what this bird is? This is the first partridge that ever existed. No partridges before this moment. This bird, this specific bird, on this specific branch, above this specific grave, is the first one, because this bird is Perdix, the 12-year-old who came to Athens to learn from his uncle, who picked up a fish spine on a beach and understood the saw, who connected 2 iron rods at a pivot and understood the compass. The boy Daedalus took to the top of the Acropolis. The boy Daedalus threw off. Minerva caught him mid-fall, changed him, gave him real wings, not wax and feathers, not engineered, not designed the kind that belonged to the body wearing them, set him down. He did not die, but here is what he became. A bird that lives as close to the ground as possible, not in trees, not on cliffs, in hedgerows, in low scrub, in the space between the earth and everything above it. The partridge walks when it can, runs when it must, flies only when there is no other option, and even then, briefly, only as low as necessary, before returning to the ground. It learned, not from a warning, not from a word, from falling and being caught and waking up as something that would never forget what height had cost. And now it sits above the grave of Icarus, above the boy who also fell, above the man who made both of them fall in different places, across the span of a life, who is still digging, still looking down. Two fells, same story, same man responsible. The difference: Perdix fell and something caught him. Icarus fell and nothing did. That is the only difference. Not character, not intelligence, not the quality of warnings received. Who was there when the fall happened? Perdix is not standing in that tree as revenge. The partridge is not cruel. It is a bird living in its body, responding to the world its nature now describes. What Ovid has placed in that tree is something harder than revenge. The living proof of what survives when someone falls and is given the chance to learn from it. This is the creature that results grounded, careful, aware of limits, carrying the knowledge of the fall in every choice it makes about how high to go. This is what learning from a fall looks like when the fall doesn't finish you. Perdix learned what Icarus never had the chance to learn. Not because Perdix was smarter, not because Perdix listened better, because Perdix fell and someone intervened, because the limit became an education instead of an ending. What Icarus needed was not better wings. What Icarus needed was someone whose body already knew what too far felt like from the inside, who could say, not with words but with the whole weight of having lived it, I know where the edge is. I've been there. I came back. Let me show you what that looks like. Daedalus had never come back from anything. He had only ever gone through. Ovid does not tell us whether Daedalus looked up. The partridge was there. It clapped its wings. It made its noise above the grave. Whether the man digging heard it, recognized it, understood, even for a moment. What he was looking at, Ovid leaves empty. Two possibilities, both unbearable. The first, he looked up, saw the bird, did not recognize it, went back to digging. The thing that could have changed everything was right there visible, present, making noise, and he did not have the knowledge to read what he was seeing. The second he looked up, saw the bird, knew exactly what it was, and went back to digging anyway, because the grave still needed finishing, because knowing even full, complete, devastating knowing does not always arrive in time to become understanding. And understanding does not always arrive in time to become change. The bird sang. The man dug. Two things in the same place at the same time, with nothing between them but the silence of everything that was never said when it still could have been. There is someone in your life who built you wings. They gave you what they had, everything they knew, every tool they'd spent their life perfecting. They just couldn't give you what they didn't have, because no one had given it to them either. Somewhere above a grave, on a nameless island, a bird that knew how to survive sat on a branch and watched a man who never learned how to bury the proof. Everyone who falls was handed wings by someone who never learned to land. The question isn't whether you'll fall. The question is, do you know whose wings you're wearing? And do you know what they were never designed to teach you?